Valentina, welcome, and please for your speech.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is really weird. I can hear an echo of my voice. I hope you can hear me well. Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes, we can hear very well. Thank you.
I have a view of the audience through the reflection on the screen, the window behind it or something. That's very good because so hi everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me. I don't know, will you be seeing my slides? I sent some slides.
No, at the moment no, but now the technician will show your slides.
Okay.
He has to change
I can talk
PC.
without them and maybe we can distribute
It's okay
them.
now.
You can
Please, you can start.
Okay, so you have them there. I
yes.
can't see them, so somebody will have to obviously go ahead and as I speak. But anyway, so just to say a few words about myself and this presentation. I'm a researcher here in Leeds. I research information systems in healthcare. In the past, I've done research on the evaluation of the electronic prescription service, for example, which is the service that is used in primary care to transmit prescriptions between GP practices and pharmacies. The research I'm conducting at the moment is done in collaboration with the London School of Economics, and I'm sure there are people in the room there who know the people I'm working with at the LSE, Tony Comfort, Ella Claxon, Ralph Hibbert, Will Venters. And so what we are doing at the moment is research on the digitalization of medicine, so that's specifically information about drugs. But given so I thought that maybe I could talk about my current research. That would be what it is about, you know, how whether medicines are changing with digitalization. But given the theme of the conference today, I thought perhaps you'd be more interested in something that I've experienced while going in the hospital to do the research about drugs. And what I've discovered is the use of an electronic patient record system that is shared in the local community. So I must say that this is my understanding of this system, having seen it in use in the hospital. I've not participated in its implementation and I haven't conducted research specifically on this, but I hope I'll be able to answer questions, and I hope I know enough to give you a sense of how it works and what is used. So what I'll try and do is put this local experience a bit in perspective and tell you a little bit about the infrastructure of the NHS IT, where this Leeds Care Record is on which is based. Tell you a bit how it works, and tell you about some of the experiences of pharmacists in the hospital. Are you with me? Sorry, is this going all right? Raise your hand if you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes. So Leeds is one of the largest cities in England. I must stress that we don't have 20 regions like in Italy, but we have 4 different NHSs in the UK. So the English NHS has different structures, partly different regulations and different systems of the NHS in Wales, in Scotland, and in Ireland, for example. In England, we also have regions. So Leeds it's in Yorkshire. It's one of the biggest cities, apart from London is the mega city, but Leeds is one of the biggest. It has about 800,000 residents, and it's become in recent years a bit of a hub of public sector health bodies. So offices, so it's got as offices from the Department of Health, NHS England, and Health and Social Care Information Centre, which is an organization, NHS organization that is responsible for NHS IT standards and information governance. A lot of what is done in NHS IT is done from the Health and Social Care Information Centre. The hospitals here in England are called trusts. They are organizations that can be independent. In Leeds is an independent organization, has some level of independence from the NHS, for example, in how to manage its budget. Leeds Teaching Hospitals NHS Trust has it's five different buildings, in a sense, scattered across the city. So it's quite a large organization. I learned that it manages a budget of 1 billion. I'm not sure, that's the information I got. And although the local population is less than 1 million residents, it serves the local population as the largest in the larger area, and that it's a bit more than 5 million people. So it's quite a large system, organization. Now, I'm sure you've heard, or most of you have heard of the National Programme for IT. This was a 10-year program that was officially closed in 2012 and was set to implement shared patient records across the NHS. I suppose we can see the history of IT in the NHS in England as a before and after the national programme. It's such a large programme that set up a large infrastructure that, although officially the programme is ended, many aspects of this infrastructure are still working. And so what any technology that is built today interacts in some way with the infrastructure that was put in place before the national programme. Before the national programme for IT, what we had in England was the GP practices were all computerized, but there was a variety of GP systems, GP software systems, and usually based on an architecture that had the local servers. So every GP would hold their own records. The hospitals had specialized systems. So, for example, they had renal care systems or cancer care systems, but they didn't have an entire patient record system computerized, mainly paper-based. And this is still the case in many NHS hospitals in England. During the national programme, what happened was that the GP systems went through they were required to implement a series of national systems. So, for example, the electronic transmission of prescription, or what is called the GP to GP system. And there was also a different contract in place. So if a GP wanted the IT to be paid by the NHS, they would have to select among systems that were accredited by the NHS. So through the implementation of these various, so there was no dictate from the centre that the NHS would use only a limited number of systems, but it became clear through the implementation of the various upgrades that only a few large systems could actually match what was required and be paid, be accredited to be paid by the NHS. So the result is that now in England, and we have 4 or 5 big, large GP systems in place. And the data that is in GP records is not anymore in local servers in GP practices, but is in the clouds of the big software supplier. And this is very important to understand in terms of how then you can share information from the hospital and build. So I'll come back to this. I think it's something that it's important to know as a background. We also have as a current targets a paperless NHS by 2020, which is clearly too ambitious as things stand. We have patients' access to their own records and integration across NHS and social care. I must say, as a patient here in the NHS, in view of today's event, I thought I should check whether I can see my GP record. And in fact, I can. I've been given a username and password. I don't make use of it because I'm well, as you said. Some citizens don't need the healthcare services, so they don't make use of it. But I can see in my GP records, I can see my medications, I can book appointments, I could do certain things. Something else that was done throughout the national program was to set up a range of standards that are now used to transfer information. So every patient has an NHS number, and this is now compulsory to use, and this is used to identify records across systems. Every person who has access to the records, so anyone who works for the NHS, has access through a care identity service. So basically has a smart card and a login and can access the network through this system. There's a dictionary of medicine and devices that is used to communicate medicines information across different applications. And so if different systems use their own drug dictionaries, they have to map their medicines to this DMD. And all information goes through what is something called the spine, which contains information about this, the NHS numbers, the MND, and the care identity service, and also NHS mail, and it's all secure. It's a separate network, secure information. You can only access this network in NHS organization and through the smart card, basically. The spine has recently gone through a redevelopment. So the original spine that was developed through the National Program for IT has now been rebuilt with open standards, open access. So that's an interesting development too. I've seen the statistics for the spine. It says in peak periods, the spine handles 2,000 messages per second, nearly 4 times the number of debit and credit card transactions that take place per second in the UK. Okay, so just to come to the Leeds care record. So this is a web-based solution that enables GP practices, hospitals, clinics, mental health services, and in the future social care services here in the Leeds area to share information, the key medical information about the patient. All the diagnosis, the medications, allergies, test results, referrals, clinic letters and discharge information. What is not shared is the day-to-day detailed clinical care. So this is either from the GP record or the other institution, the records of the other institutions. So this data is shared in a platform that is called PPM, well, in the hospital it's called PPM Plus. I have a screenshot. I'm sorry, it's a bit hazy, perhaps, the image. This is the view from the hospital. I don't have a view from the GP record, but I imagine it would be more or less the same. And what you can see is that there is a menu on the left. At the bottom of this menu on the left, there is a tab or a button that says GP record. So this is what the hospital sees, is all the information about the patient. Well, actually, I must say, in the hospital, they still have paper records for the detailed everyday care of the patient. But what they see in this record is the results and now also the medications. So they have all the test results, the diagnosis, the appointments, scans and pictures. And they can click on the GP record and they can see information about the medications in the GP record. So if you were a GP in a GP practice, you could see through this Leeds care record, you could see that your patient has been admitted to hospital, and you can see that there is surgery planned for tomorrow, for example. You would have the contact details of where the patient is, and you could give the ward, you could give a call, for example, if you wanted more information. So at the moment...
2 minutes. Again.
Okay, thank you. So how the Leeds care record was developed in-house through expanding a system that was in use in the hospital, which is, well, this system that is in use in the hospital, which is called PPM Plus, which in itself was a development of a specialized system that the hospital were using for cancer care. So you can see how the system is still in development, but has been in development for several years, and as a development of an existing system rather than starting from scratch. It's developed with agile methodology, based on the idea that they want to build an comprehensive electronic patient record system that incorporates what they call the best of breed. So they would buy electronic prescribing, they would buy picture archiving systems, but this system, so they're the best of breed. So they do one thing well, but they must be able to communicate with this PPM Plus system into this platform. So the GP systems, there is only now 2 systems for GP practices in use in the area in Leeds. And all the patient information is in the cloud in the GP systems. So these 2 software suppliers or GP system have to integrate and be interoperable with the PPM Plus for this to be in place. To make it work, they had an information government agreement, which was done locally. And it's interesting if there is time, perhaps later during the questions, to discuss this, how the information governance that was set up for the Leeds care record enables the sharing of information across GP practices. But if the hospital wanted to implement a specific service, for example, geriatricians to take care of the elderly patient in Leeds, having access to information from GP practices. Access to the GP record would be much more challenging because the GPs say we cannot share information with you. We have to set up an information governance. So that I know has been mentioned today in other countries as an issue in other countries, and it's still an issue here in England. Okay, so at the end of my presentation, I had the experiences of pharmacists in the hospital, but I don't think there is time to do this, so we can perhaps close here, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Valentina, for your contribution.